Now let's increase the contrast a little bit on the figure. We want to be careful here because it's a product photo, so we want to make sure that it accurately represents the colors in the product. If we were to adjust the contrast in a way where it will shift the colors the way it looks, then the customer would be disappointed if they get it in the mail. It doesn't look like what they were expecting it to look like. You can imagine if you were preparing photos for eBay, for example, you wouldn't want to remove scratches or defects in the product because that's part of what they're buying. So I'm going to use my levels, and I'm just going to give it a little bump. Yeah, just a little bit. That's all it needs. And now I'm going to add a drop shadow. The drop shadow is a graphic design technique that's used to give depth. It's not a photorealistic shadow, but it's a nice effect to add to the image. You can control different parameters on it. What we definitely don't want is a really like dark, heavy shadow. We want it to be nice and smooth. I'm going to bring down the opacity on the shadow, and I can control the distance and the spread. And typically, we're going to expect shadows to be on the bottom because the light sources come from the top. And if you have multiple subjects on a page with drop shadows, it's good if the drop shadows are all coming from the same angle so that it kind of gives the illusion that there's one single light source illuminating all the different subjects. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to say OK. And I want to make sure I save it at this point. I want to have a working copy so that I have my layers preserved and I have it at full size, so I can go back and edit it. I could use this in the second exercise, for example. So I'll save this now. Okay. Now I'm going to crop it. Now I'm going to select. I want the crop to be at width, height, resolution, and set to 400 by 400 pixels, which is the criteria for the assignment. Let's say I wasn't really careful, and instead of 400 pixels, it was 401 pixels. In some cases, the photo might just be rejected outright. It might just be kicked back that it's not the right size. In other cases, it'll go up, but there'll be little weird gaps and things like that. So it's good to be mindful of these things and make sure that you have the precise dimensions. For this assignment, let's add a small gap around the subject, a small margin. We don't want a lot. It's very common for e-commerce photos to be in a system, a content management system, where you'll upload a large image and all the other ones are created from that large one automatically. So if you have too much white background when it's really small on the thumbnail, that margin is gonna eat away from all the precious space you have in that tiny image. So we want it pretty close, but still have some margin on it. Now we're ready to export it. We're going to do export as. JPEG is a pretty good all-purpose format. We'll look at compression settings more in week 6. I'm going to use 65. You want something between 60 and 80% usually for anytime you're using anything on the web. And then you can export it and then submit it.